difficult to. Maybe Rick and Tom could get Newt Gingrich as his vice presidential candidate. That will be called the lunatic asylum team. The team from hell, or whatever you want to call it. Or maybe Sarah Palin will engineer a comeback. Yeah. Another favorite daughter of the lunacy of the Red States. So that is the story about Barack Obama. I have this terrible tendency to talk too long, so I'm going to look at I've got a watch somewhere. That's because of the microphone. Okay. Because we have to say something about the derailment of the Republican Party, why that happened, when it started, and is it going to become even worse than it is today? Can it become worse? Well, if they... That's another reason to root for Rick Santorum, with Sarah Palin as his vice presidential candidate, or maybe Michelle Bachmann as... Maybe he can have two vice presidential candidates, Sarah Palin together with Michelle Bachmann. Wouldn't that be a wonderful team? Really great thinkers. People who really know the business of politics. Who really know it. So yeah, let's root for a team like that, because if the Republican Party nominates Mitt Romney and he loses, and there's a good chance, of course, that he will lose to Barack Obama, then the right-wing nuts in the Republican Party will say, see, the moderate guy lost, so what should we do? We should all become right-wing nuts. We should try to make remake the United States over into a right-wing nut country. And to some extent they have already succeeded in making it a right-wing nut country, because this has become a very nutty country. Really, I'm very sorry to have to say that. When I started becoming interested in the United States, it was quite a normal and interesting country. And then from a certain historical point onwards, it became nuttier and nuttier and nuttier. And the first years, it was not completely clear that they were on this nutcase track. And then slowly it turned out that let's try to describe this development. It all has to do, of course, with the difficult and to some extent politically and culturally chaotic 70s. It is rooted in the 70s. And from 1945 to, let's say, 1975, 76, 77, we had a different political consensus in most rich industrial countries, which was called the Keynesian consensus. And let's say you could also call it a social democratic consensus. Even in the United States, you could say, maybe in the United States you could call it the New Deal consensus. And during that consensus, there was this rapid industrial growth, rapid income growth. These were called the golden years, 1945, 1975. And in the 60s, we were all completely sure that this paradise, this wonderful system where there was economic growth 5-6% every year, and we became richer and richer and richer, would go on forever and forever. That's what we learned at the university, what I learned at Utrecht University, where the microphone was even worse than it is today. And that paradise ended somewhere in the 70s, because suddenly unemployment was rising. And suddenly we had inflation on 10% average every year. This was an inflationary decade, and a decade of rising unemployment. And this strong growth suddenly started waning. Suddenly, growth was not more than 2 or 3% a year. We had been accustomed to 5 or 6% a year. And then people started saying, well, how come? What's the reason that this wonderful system that has worked so well for about 30 years now has turned into a system which is not working that good anymore? And slowly people decided we need another political and economical system. And the reason that it's not working anymore has to do with the fact that the influence of government has become much too strong. We should get government off our backs, which is a quote from the greatest American president ever, Ronald Reagan, who is actually in heaven, I can assure you. They actually bought an extra little chair so that he can sit to the right of the Lord himself. And there's a strong movement in heaven to make Ronald Reagan into the Lord and pension the Lord off. Well, he's been doing that work for a long, long time, and there are voices who say that the Lord is rather left-wing and that maybe a right-wing Lord should be a much better proposition for everybody. Well, Jesus is not happy with this development. As you know, Jesus is very kind of left-wing nut in a way. Ja, hoe heet de bergreden in het Engels? De bergreden. De bergreden van Christus, the mountain, the Sermon on the Mountain? Yeah. The Sermon on the Mountain? Yeah. Not speech probably. That sounds like after dinner speech, and it's not a kind of after dinner speech. Has anybody ever read the Sermon on the Mountain? Oh, just 1, 2, 3. Let's wait for half an hour and everybody will have read it. Then you'll remember it as a rather left-wing piece of reasoning. I'm sorry to say so, but this Jesus Christ figure would probably vote not for the Republicans. And I'm quite sure that in the Netherlands he wouldn't vote for the present cabinet that is governing the Netherlands. So he would probably vote for the same party as I do. After talking to me for a while. Yeah. So things started to change in the 70s. And we got this new view on society in a way, and a new view on how economics worked. And suddenly we concluded this Keynesian system is not right. Maybe it was right for some time, but it's not right anymore. And that's the way that neoliberalism was born in the late 70s. And neoliberalism triumphed as a political system in the 80s, of course. And so, the first one was in England, Margaret Thatcher, who wrote the healthcare plan of Bill and Hillary Clinton, which was in a way a foolish and too complicated plan, but still, there was a plan. And it was torpedoed by Newt Gingrich, who was then, in 1994, exactly the same megalomanian idiot that he is today. A really dangerous idiot, who of course organized the impeachment of Bill Clinton because of the Monica Lewinsky affair, while he was having at the same moment an affair with this very strange woman that he is now married to, the one with the